You know, as a longtime Sonic fan, I'm really happy to say that I think the current state of the franchise is good. I've been a Sonic fan since the early 2000s, but only started following the Blue Blur's online presence in late 2010 with the release of Sonic Colors. There, I joined the online Sonic community and really got a feel for how Sonic was mainly treated amongst the industry. I was there at the spectacular 2011 release of Sonic Generations, I was there for the Sports Tape 2014 Sonic Boom era, and I'm still here with the current Year of Shadow, blessing us with some of the best Shadow content we've gotten in over a decade. I can't help but just think about how good the state of the franchise currently is and just wanted to talk about it for a bit, and even gush about it because, hey, Sonic is my favorite franchise of all time. Now, Sonic has constantly been racing into multiple things outside of video games in his long 30-year and continuing life. From comics to toys to TV shows and even special events, it feels like there's an endless amount of Sonic and he's practically everywhere. This is the sort of feeling that I felt back in the 2000s when Sonic X was like one of the biggest shows on television for a time and Sonic had a Happy Meal promotion with McDonald's. But this was also the feeling that was missing during the 2010s era of Sonic. To briefly touch on the 2010s, while the start of the decade was strong with the releases of Colors, Generations, and All-Stars Racing Transformed, it felt like the franchise quickly became aimless and oddly experimental with Sonic Lost World, Boom, and Forces. I know Sonic Boom is supposed to be the sub-series to bring the franchise back to the forefront in a big way, but it quickly turned into a financial disaster in the end, and one that, no one talks about anymore because it's just a dead franchise. Looking back, it's actually kind of crazy to see that there was a time when Boom Sonic was advertised alongside classic and modern Sonic and treated as the third pillar of the franchise. Nowadays, Sonic Boom has been forgotten about, and we're back to only having classic and modern Sonic. The 2010s is making me appreciate how things currently are in the 2020s. For starters, the games have so far felt like they're steering in a better direction, and one I've been wanting for a while now. While I didn't mind Sonic Colors as I think it's fine to have a low-stakes Sonic story every once in a while, I wasn't really all that impressed with what we got from Sonic Lost World and Forces. Forces especially, given that it had a good premise of Eggman taking over the world, but it was wasted with poor execution. I've been a fan of Ian Flynn and his writing since the Archie Sonic days, and I was excited to see him finally write for the games, and so far I think he's been doing a good job. The characters actually feel like characters again, and the current characterizations have been giving us some actual, meaningful dialogue and solid character conversations. And one of my favorite cutscenes comes from Sonic Frontiers, with the conversation between Sonic and Knuckles, as we see Sonic listening to Knuckles' feelings on relating to the Cocos and being the last of his kind, only for Sonic to try and cheer him up while giving some light teasing. The back and forth banter between the two of them, just being bros, is the type of writing I've been yearning to see in a Sonic game since, well, the 2000s. Another would be how the story of Shadow Generations not only provided us with one of the best Shadow stories, but also brought us some of the best emotional moments in the entire franchise. I think the last time I was genuinely moved by a story in a Sonic game was back in 2009 with Sonic and the Black Knight. Outside of story, I'm enjoying to dive into a new gameplay formula with newly titled Open Zone gameplay. While Frontiers is largely seen as a glorified tech demo by tons of fans, and rightfully so for its egregious amount of pop-ins and other technical mishaps, I honestly found the game to be one of the most fun Sonic games in the entire franchise. The gameplay loop it had going was addicting, with gathering the gears to unlock cyberspace levels, completing them to earn the keys to unlock the Chaos Emeralds, and collecting character tokens to watch more cutscenes with the characters. The combat was quick with a lot of cool, flashy moves against a variety of unique enemies. The supersonic boss fights were some of the most over-the-top bosses in the entire franchise and still give me an adrenaline rush with that sick music. And with the free updates including the spin dash and playable characters, it honestly raised my feelings on Frontiers a lot and solidified it as one of my all-time favorites. I think the recent Shadow Generations is even better despite being a smaller, bite-sized adventure. Maybe it's because it's a smaller project than Frontiers, but it's nice to see that the pop-ins have been addressed in the open zone for Shadow, and character animations have been greatly improved. Instead of seeing the characters just stand around doing nothing in cutscenes like in most of Frontiers, we now have Shadow looking much more expressive. From the way he grunts and uses his brows, to his dynamic poses when finishing a level, everything screams higher quality and polish. Hoping that with the success of both Sonic Frontiers and Shadow Generations, that is a sign that the next major Sonic game will be given more development time, a bigger budget, and more staff brought on to work on it. Sonic Frontiers felt like a step in the right direction, but Shadow Generations felt like we were so back and no ifs or buts. Now, stepping away from the games, there's the comics. IDW Sonic has been running since 2018 and still has been solid fun. While I grew up reading the Archie Sonic comics as a kid and have a bias in terms of favoring a few things from them, I can still admit that I greatly enjoy what IDW is doing and feel as if the comics are still getting better and better. There was a point in time when I questioned if Sonic still had a future with comics, and I'm glad he still does. I'm an old guy, so I know the comics aren't necessarily being aimed at me anymore, but I'm glad that they exist to tell new stories for a new generation. And I actually recently found out a younger cousin of mine is really into Sonic too, and he reads the IDW Sonic comics, and well, I thought that was really cool to learn. The comics have just recently wrapped up what I believe to be one of the best arcs with the Phantom Rider arc, and that's an arc I would love to gush about another time alongside Scrapnik Island, which, hey, come here, you should definitely use money to support because it's so good, and we need Daniel Barnes to write another Sonic story again. There's also the Metal Virus arc, which is still considered to be one of the best comic stories Sonic has ever had. A bit of a darker and serious story that pushes Sonic and friends past their limits while dealing with a zombie outbreak, and you really do get to see some of the coolest moments with side characters and some really powerful emotional moments that can even make the toughest person shed a tear. While IDW Sonic does continue the tradition of introducing new original comic characters, and I personally do think that some of them are just okay and could be better, I do think that there's still a handful amount of them that are exceptional characters and have rightfully become fan favorites for those willing to read the comics. The three in specific being Whisper, Tingle, and Surge, they add a bit more to the world of Sonic and the colorful cast of characters. I think with the recent confirmation that IDW Sonic is canon to the Sonic video games, it has opened the door for these characters to have lives outside of the pages of the comics, and we're already seeing that with IDW characters appearing in Sonic mobile games, or Tingle being name dropped by Sonic and Sonic Frontiers. I'd be all for these characters someday appearing in a big budget console game. I mean, I think it would be really cool if Sonic Team gave us an over-the-top Sonic Frontiers styled boss fight between Sonic and Surge. I'd be completely down for that. While I don't have much to say when it comes down to merchandise, I will admit that I feel as if Sonic has been having a real uptick in quality when it comes down to having cool toys lately. I've been seeing so many people online lately saying, why couldn't we have cool Sonic toys like this growing up compared to the kids nowadays? And while I share that similar jealousy, I'm still glad to see Sonic finally getting these sort of cool toys to begin with. I think it's honestly super rad to see official merchandise of classic characters like Fang and Mighty, or have playsets based on Stardust Speedway from Sonic CD, or Sonic finally partnering with Legos. Legos is like one of those collabs I never knew I wanted, but I'm so glad it exists so I can have it. We're literally getting a Super Sonic and Super Shadow vs. BioLizard's Lego set in the future, and I think that's going to go down in history as one of the coolest things we've gotten in this franchise. Not to only talk about toys, but I actually am kind of glad that Sonic has been getting more dynamic shirts lately. The Year of Shadow has given me two of my favorite Shadow shirts ever, with the Sakura Shadow being one of the coolest things I've ever seen, and I've already went ahead and bought the shirt for myself. And Sonic is still going for the gold when it comes down to television and movies. We of course got Sonic Prime, the Knuckles TV series, and the third Sonic movie. While I'm not the biggest fan of Sonic Prime and the Knuckles TV show, I will say that I do at least appreciate them both for still existing. Sonic Prime makes a good case of why Sonic cartoons are still successful and should still come out. Sonic Prime had some of the best animation ever, and I think it had a really solid voice cast. Like, seriously, if we ever had to change the video game cast, I wouldn't mind bringing in Devin Mack, Ian Hanlon, or Brian Drummond to do voice work for the games. And with the Knuckles TV show, I think it opens up the door for more characters to get their own spin-off show, and possibly tell more lower stake and personal stories amongst the movie cast. And it has to be said, but I absolutely loved Sonic Movie 3. As a Sonic Adventure 2 fanboy, it had my chest feeling tight with how it handled some of the story moments, especially during the third act of the film. I think Shadow's overall story was tastefully adapted to the big screen, and while some changes were made, they were reasonable things that I didn't have a problem with. Seeing Sonic Movie 3 have, at the time of me writing the script, an 88% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and is considered one of the best video game movies of all time, with audience and critics absolutely loving it and seeing it as a big improvement from the last film, it just really has me feeling really happy as a Sonic fan. And I don't think anyone really thought that Sonic would make it this far after the original Ugly Sonic situation, but yet, here we are. 3 solid video game films, and already we have a 4th one confirmed to be on the way. Last thing I wanted to touch on is the events that Sega have been doing. While I appreciate the smaller stuff like the official Sonic live streams on YouTube, with the Sega employees bonding more with the community, or even the Sonic takeovers on Twitter with how much fun the voice actors are having with what they're reading, I think I'm even more grateful for the Sonic Symphony for existing. Now, everyone knows that Sonic has banger music. I don't think it's far-fetched to argue that Sonic is one of the greatest gaming franchises in history when it comes down to music and its wide variety. You can find anything from New Jack Swing to pop to rock, hip-hop, and have a good time with the franchise. That's why it's honestly so insane to believe that it took so long for Sega to capitalize on this aspect of the franchise with the World Tour Symphony. I was able to attend this symphony and meet up with some close online friends that I've been knowing for years, and let me say, it was one of the greatest nights of my life. The energy at the concert was amazing. So many people of different ages in the room showing their passion for our hero. The performers did an absolutely stellar job with the music, and I loved how the first half of the show was like an orchestra with a mix of melodies from the classic era of Sonic and some modern melodies mixed in, but then the second half of the show just turned into a full-blown rock concert with all the energy in the room just exploding and everyone just rocking out to the music and singing. One of my friends literally almost lost his voice by the end of the show. I'm seriously hoping that as we move into 2025, that the Sonic Symphony will announce even more tour dates and travel a bit further out to different locations outside of America to further allow more Sonic fans around the world to experience it. I'll say this, if it's not in your area, then definitely travel out like I did. It's well worth the experience, and just sitting down watching a recording on YouTube just won't cut it. You actually have to be there to experience the real thing. Every Sonic fan should experience this. So, that's pretty much all I wanted to gush about. There's still a lot to think about regarding the future of this franchise and what's to come next, and I may share thoughts in a future video. But for now, I just want to again say that I think that the Sonic franchise is in a really good spot right now, and as a Sonic fan, I'm just really happy. Couldn't ask for anything more. So with that, thank you for watching.